Hello, and welcome back to Divine Journey 2. Last time we automated our Tier 3 Blood Magic Essences, went down through the remainder of Evilcraft, and unlocked Botania, and started with that. Today I have a pretty full list of stuff I would like to do. I don't expect I'll get all of it done, but that's okay. I would like to automate our mana production, I would like to automate our various living things, I would like to automate our Petal Apothecary, our Runic Altar, I would like to be able to autocraft in Hellfire Forges, for the most part, save for the will that we have to manually refill. I would like to decorate at least a good amount of it. And if we've got time, I'd like to go to Appalachia and do a little bit of dungeon delving. So to begin with, I'd like to automate our mana production. We're currently using this system of feeding experience that we get from our various mob farms into these Rosa Arcana, which give us quite a lot of mana actually. However, it's not really automated. I still have to flip it on and off whenever we get to full, so I don't create a mess of experience orbs at the bottom there. You have a few ways of making it so there's not a constant mess. However, the one I'd like to go to is probably the most elegant solution of just turning the thing off rather than trying to constantly recycle the experience and probably lagging the world out. Thankfully, for sake of our mana reserves, we can actually just put these mana pools in cardboard boxes for the time being, so we don't actually lose anything from doing this. So how I'd like to do this is with a buffer to begin with. We're going to have one mana pool here that everything's just going to dump into, and then we're going to read its signal with a comparator here. Botania machines are actually very nice in that they have a lot of redstone functionality, so this comparator is actually going to do a lot of work for us. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a comparator on subtract mode. Basically this will read this potentiometer, which will be on 6, maybe 7, and compare it to what's actually in the mana pool. Basically, if the mana pool is more than about half full, it will produce a redstone signal. We'll then take that redstone signal through a wireless transmitter and feed it up to there to turn it all off in some way. Here's the basic idea I have to start with. We just have a receiver into some conduit that should hopefully turn this mechanical user redstone on. We'll manually force it, that's just a lever for right now. And so what should happen is if I turn this on and pull this off, it should keep the mechanical user off, which is good. That seems to be what's happening. But with this off, it still isn't doing anything, strangely. For some reason it thinks redstone is on here. I really couldn't tell you why. Something about the conduit being there, I guess, was just turning it on. What if I just put it on this black hole tank here? So now if we flick this lever on, it should turn on the mechanical user. Yeah, alright, cool. We actually want that backwards then. So when redstone is off, it's running. Now the other thing is we actually want it to have the tap off while the redstone is on, which is a little bit trickier. Because if we just kind of leave it on all the time, leaving the mechanical user on flicking constantly is fine. What isn't fine is if it stops because the mana pool is full and it continues draining because the tap itself is on. We don't want that. What we want to have happen is for when this comparator is on, we want it to turn off the machine or the output or the experience, because if this comparator is on, that means this mana pool is too full, and we want it to, when this redstone is off, for that to be on. So I think how I'd like to do this is actually with almost entirely vanilla redstone, besides this potentiometer, which you could arguably say is kind of vanilla. It's just one block instead of a setup. So if we have a comparator here on subtract mode, potentiometer here on, we'll say 9 for right now, a repeater so that any redstone signal will just turn this on, and then an observer here facing this way so that it will observe when this turns on or off, and it will send a pulse through here, or through this transmitter here. That pulse should pulse this, which should either toggle it on or off depending on how the comparator is. So let's find out. If I just flick this and let it run for a bit, let's turn down the potentiometer actually so the comparating is a little easier. And it turns it off, but if we ask it to go higher, it turns it back on. Wow, that was actually super easy. I way overcomplicated this, I gotta say. This actually looks pretty clean though. I gotta say, I'm a bit impressed with myself. You know, I don't do redstone very often, but I'm pretty happy, I gotta say. Yeah, so now we have logic to turn on and off our, effectively, a generator. So this is basically just a simple buffer mana pool that will take all the mana into our larger mana battery, which we'll do shortly. And by shortly, I realistically mean right now. So to take all of this lovely mana and put it into a larger battery, we're just gonna have 3 mana spreaders, maybe 4 if I can fit it here, actually, into this mana splitter here, into these mana pools. So what this should do is whenever we actually need to restock our mana, these spreaders should just put it into this big battery from this smaller battery right here. There's a far better way of doing this in the future, but for right now, this is what we have to work with. So if we take, say, a stack of mithril here and dump it in here, using a bunch of our mana up for mana steal, it looks like 3 of these mana spreaders are line of sight blocked to the splitter, which is a little unfortunate. There is a way around this, but again, we'll have a better way of doing this later. We could probably raise this whole thing, and that would do it as well, but these are already there, and Again, this is all, well, temporary, quote-unquote. So, again, this will suffice. We'll put a mana lens, which is kind of like an upgrade on this thing, and that should help. Actually, it looks like for these mana lenses, we need different runes, so I suppose we should make these first. These are just crafting recipes, more or less, now that we have a lot of mana production, so let's just bring the Runic Altar over here and do these. I think Potency and Velocity are the ones we want right now, so we want a Rune of Fire and Air. And it looks like these aren't anything too crazy, just cores and the like. We can do this. Gotta say, with 3 of these mana spreaders, this thing's real fast. So I want to make 2 of these, I think, and then I put 1 of each with one of these runes for the Potency and Velocity. We're in a quest. And then I think you can combine them with like a slime ball or something. Yeah, here we go. Potency and Velocity, and I think you can color it. Yeah! So now if we chuck this on here, it shoots red bolts that are a lot better. That's pretty cool. We could put these lenses on everything, but I'll wait until we have the Runic Altar ready to autocraft stuff before I start getting ready to put it on everything. That's automated mana down. We're making good progress already. Let's take a little bit of a break from the magic and automate this stuff, which is going to be a lot less magical. As you can see, I brought here some smart cables from a P2P line we have down here. All of these green cables are on a subnet that we're storage busing into an interface. To put it very simply, because I know subnets are very confusing, this is basically a second ME network. These drawers are on a separate ME network, but because we have a storage bus on this interface, we can just read this entire ME network. So kind of this is just an extension of the network, but in practice it's a lot more complicated than that. So to actually automate all this, we're going to want some block placers for our dimensional stones, dirts, and wood. And then we're going to use some annihilation planes on each of these cables here. The annihilation planes will basically destroy any block that it can and put it into storage. But the only storage on this subnetwork is these 3 drawers right here, so it will only break those 3 things. So what should happen is if we just put annihilation planes down here, it should actually break all of these things immediately. We don't actually have any block placers yet, so it's not going to put anything back down. But it should break these, I think. Oh, that was a really scary sound effect, but it does work. That's good. So to place all these blocks, we're going to need some block placers. We're going to be using these ones, though. So the idea is we're just going to have all of these on, I think deactivation mode works. That should just place whenever it has stuff to place. And we're just going to basically have a limited item filter on each of these, so it doesn't waste all of our materials making 9 stacks of stuff when we'd only need the 1 item. So 32 limited item filters kind of hurts me as in my pride, but you know, we deal with it. We deal with it. We're going to be requesting Dreadlands wooden logs and Dreadstone, and we'll get some Dreadlands dirt instead of all this grass. And these are the dimensional variants we'll be using to filter into each of these to actually make our living stuff. Well, I'm really hoping I don't have to change those filters ever again, because that was a lot of clicking. This should be a good start on all that we have for our purposes, though. So we should be able to just turn these on, and they should just get going, I think. Oh, I hear them going. Yeah? Alright, looks good. Curious as to why this one isn't working, though. Oh, forgot to set a filter. There we go. Now I can go ahead and patch up these holes, too. Yeah, and now our living rock, living wood, and living matter is coming in all passively. Awesome. And that's another box. Checked. Before I get too ahead of myself with everything else we will plan on automating, I want to take some time and build out everything around here so I have a bit more of a concrete place where I want to put things. And then we'll worry about automating the apothecary and the like. Do you like my new plant? I made it myself. Honestly, I'm not sure how I feel. Hey! Honestly, I'm not sure how I feel about it. I was kind of hoping to go for like a kind of a vine that leads into like this is a sort of fruit at the top. It's got two different things. That way it can look at you while you're down here too. I kind of like how it came out, but I'm not super enthused with it. I don't know, I might come back to this and try something later, maybe with some chisels and bits. I've also done a little bit of work with the mana spreaders over here. We have two of these potency velocity ones pushing into our mana buffer. And we have some more spreaders going up over here to where the Runic Altar is. These are all lensed with a mana pearl inside the lens, so they shoot rainbows, which is really cool to look at, especially at nighttime. Unfortunately, the pools are all full currently, so maybe I'll cut a clip of that shortly or something. Anyway, next up we're doing the Apothecary, so that should be pretty easy. What I think I'd like to do here is I think I would want to try and set up a phantom face for the first time. I've never used these before. So I think how these work is you hook this up to these or something like that. Yeah. So now this is that, or like if you put something in here, it should put it in here. So if I like take a hopper and throw in some cobblestone, yeah, it already, wow, okay, that worked a lot better than I thought it would. Yeah, so this should work basically awesome, actually. This will look super clean too. What I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna run some cable over here and into an interface. I mean, obviously, right, that's how any autocrafting works. And I think what we can do is we can just shove it straight into the phantom face. And I think that should work now. It should just put stuff in there to put in there. So we definitely want this on blocking mode. We also need a way to actually grab the items, so we'll worry about that actually once we make sure it works. Let's start with some Petals of the Arcane Rose. We might end up making more Rose Archon. I have a bunch spare, but you know, it's always good to have more. So what if I try and request this now? What happens? A seed. We also need the seed, of course. Okay, but otherwise it basically worked. And then it drops the item, which we can probably just have like a ranged collector down here, I think. I feel like that would probably do it. Set a whitelist here, have it route back in here. Let's fix the recipe, and now let's try another. Oh, it did it! It's a little slow, but it works. All right, that's pretty good. I suppose we could have a like a hopper up here, which would make things a little faster, but it would make it also look a little less pretty. So, you know, I think this is worth it. Man, phantom faces are cool. I gotta use these things more often. Check. So next up, I want to do the Runic Altar auto-crafting. The idea I have here is mostly the same as with the Apothecary. I'm just going to use an open crate for everything. The exception here is we're going to have a mechanical user on the side here with a wand we'll make for this specifically. Because how the Runic Altar works is you need to right-click it with a wand to complete the craft once everything's all done. So if we just check down here, down here. So if we head down here, we have a line already brought out here. So once again, we're just going to use an interface and a phantom face with a ranged collector on the side here. And then we'll just set whitelists whenever we need to. We've got 12 slots in here, which should be fine for right now. Worst case scenario, we can just add a second ranged collector. We'll link this to that. And let's see if this doesn't just work. Let's start with our basic runes of water in the lake. We need to put some living rocks in each of these, of course. Even though the recipe doesn't necessarily call for it, but that's just how the altar works. So the last rune we actually haven't made yet is water. The rest of these we've made for various mana lenses. Let's try and request a rune of water. So if we head over here, it looks like it's dumping all the stuff out. It drops the living rock last, which is good. And if we just toss our wand to the forest in here, and then activate block with item, it should just do it once it has the opportunity to. Doesn't need to be a sneak right click. Oh, use item on block seemed to do it. Okay, that's good. But hey, there's a quest complete. Oh, also, you may have seen that I edited this a little bit. I didn't really like how it came out. You probably heard me talk about that, so I changed it up a little bit. I moved our mana, I don't know what you would call this, a pipeline around it. I think that looks a little bit cooler, but I'm still not super sold on it. I am very much open to feedback about this. So we'll just toss one of these in here, and that should be automatic runes for the most part. Check. Next up is our Hellfire Forges, which is probably the thing I've really should have done first. I've been getting really tired of the assisted crafting with these things. I'm thinking about putting Hellfire Forges maybe back there somewhere, or in here. We don't have a ton of space because this hill is not particularly large if we want to keep it inside the hill still. And I certainly don't want to put it out with all the Botania stuff because it's not Botania stuff. But like if we use augment here, we can see that this room kind of comes out here, and really, unless we go like down immediately, which we definitely could, I think some extra height elevation, or some extra elevation differences would do a lot here. But we don't have a whole lot of space here, so we gotta kind of make some space. The other tricky thing is rooms that enter at an angle. Like rooms that enter straight on is really easy, but trying to enter from like here, for example, is really tough. Like the reason I don't do this at all anymore is because like these little sections were just so awkward to do. Like that's just why I don't do these corners anymore. They're just really tough to make look good. So I guess I'll just start doing some digging over here, see what comes out. Well, it's a bit of a storage closet in here. I'm not super sure about the black concrete, or these encased bricks is what they're called. But it's a place for now. So we do technically have space for 4 Hellfire Forges, but it doesn't look very good. So I'm invoking forbidden technology yet again. And we're just gonna cut into the floor a bit. So I suppose before I get too involved, I should actually see how these things take two-sided machinery. I know the alchemy tables were very weird. So if I just put stuff in, how does it feel about that? It just puts it in slots, alright? Does it worry about the will slot? It does. Does it put into the output slot? No. Okay. Does it extract from every slot? Yes. So I have to filter extracts, that's fine. And I prioritize the will one last, right? Okay, so that's good. I don't have to worry about accidentally putting stuff here if it shouldn't be there. How about when it actually has finished items, does it take those first? I suppose that doesn't matter too much. I guess it matters just what side I can do it from. And it does do from any side. These seem pretty easy. I'll be honest, the only thing that's really a problem is the Tartaric gems, I think. But refilling those manually shouldn't be too bad, provided this is just for auto-crafting purposes. Seems like just making sure that we can only take out the items that we want to take out, and that we're not putting items into a Hellfire Forge with no will crystal in it. Can we IO from same side, actually? Yes. Alright, so these things should actually be really easy to automate, just with some... Actually, is this fine? Actually, something I'm really wondering is, can I just, like, slap an interface next to this thing? Do I even have to... No, I'd certainly have to pull it out. What about something like just this? And just have these all connected? So I guess we'll start by testing water reagents. These things are actually going to be pretty easy for us because we already have the secondary water buckets ready. Ooh, do we even actually need that if we're going by on demand? Because if we're not trying to pump things in all passively, would blocking mode be fine? Do we even need blocking mode? Ooh, a lot to think about. We're certainly going to need some item filters. So let's just start with 2 big ones. So we only want to be extracting the water reagents and nothing else. So if we just take this and put it in, how does it treat that? Like what if I just request some water reagents like this? We do need to filter the buckets, that's right. And we should turn this on. So that pulls the buckets out and the reagents. Why have I been putting this off? Like, are you kidding me? That was so easy. It's no passive, and it won't work for passive, but it works for on-demand, and that's all we're doing it for right now, because we can't make it passively. Yeah, we'll just tile this then. So I do actually want to make this a little bit more complicated than it is. I want our Hellfire Forges to kind of roughly share the load of the demonic will we use, and I would like to make parallel crafting a lot nicer. So like for something like this, we use a lot of gusty cores, fire cores, and aquatic cores. Ideally, we'd be making all 3 of these at the same time, and these all use tier 1. What I'm saying is we want things of the same tier to be parallel. We don't want to put everything into, say, this interface. We only want one thing per tier per interface. So like we're going to put lava reagents here, and dirty reagents here, because they're the same tier. And then haste reagents in the bottom one, and wizard's reagent in the one above it, so we're not sharing tiers. I don't know how meaningful it's really going to be to do this, but... you know, it probably matters, maybe. I imagine it'll save us a little bit of time in the long run. And now we just gotta set a lot of filters. No, we do actually have a slight issue here. Things like air reagents taking 2 of a stackable item, like glass bottles, we're gonna have to separate these as well into named items. Actually, it seems like we only really need to do it the one time, so I guess we're just using the last slot of this that we have for right now, which is fine. I don't think we actually needed more slots of these. So I think all that's really left is to swap these to blocking mode, toss the crystals back in, and give it a whirl. Let's see if we can't just make... let's go all the way. Let's try and make 2 runes of earth. Supposedly we can make all these reagents. I believe dirty's in the top one. Well, that's a good sign. We head over here. How's this looking? Okay, I'm definitely seeing an issue with this. We definitely need to have this on blocking mode in some way, or so that it only does 1 recipe at a time. I'm not really sure how we do that with a phantom face, though. But otherwise, it does work, for the most part. Current issues I see is I kind of want this to have a blocking mode of sorts. I don't really know exactly how I would do that. At the current moment, I'll think about it. And how to make sure that we have mana? I suppose there's no issue, provided it is blocking properly, so that we're only running or trying to run 1 recipe at a time. So I'll take a little bit and I'll think about this. What if I just toggled this to blocking mode? Is that just going to fix all my problems in a way that I don't understand? No, it does still just keep dumping it. I guess because the open crate doesn't really have an inventory. I wonder, can the open crate be toggled with redstone? So it does care about redstone, but not in a way that I care about. I mean, that's still an interesting way, but not one that I, need. Alright, so I've got kind of a bad idea for this. It involves more redstone. If we have any item in the ranged collector, a comparator does produce a signal. So, what I'm thinking is we can have this comparator trigger when the next craft should go, maybe? If there's a way to do that. The problem I'm then thinking of is how do we start the initial craft? Okay, so this is very different than what we last saw. We've gotten a little doohickey with it. Let's see if I can't test this craft again while I let this thing go. So the hopper here we have hooked up to the phantom face down there. So anything that is, so all ingredients go into this. As you can see, it comes out through the conveyor belt here. We have a sensor here that detects if there's anything in this block. I would love to put it here, but that would make it too high to read what's on top of the altar, which very frustrating. So this reads and produces a redstone signal whenever there is an item on top of the Runic Altar, typically a living rock, to a conveyor belt here, which turns this off, and a hopper here, which turns this off as well, basically preventing more items from going through blocking mode style. Well, not blocking mode style, but makes an item stick in here for blocking mode purposes. And then once those items go back on, that conveyor goes through and continues to craft. So it looked a little dicey near the end there. We saw 2 things get on top of this when they shouldn't have had anything, but it was only 1 recipe's worth of stuff, so that's fine. I'm gonna order a big batch of runes just to give it a shot. Let's order like 10 water runes and see what that does. So all the stuff comes through just fine, that's good. We have nothing in here, so this hopper will get the next batch and get locked. Then when this is full of mana, it should trigger, having the next set go through. Goes on, stops with the living rock. That goes through because that took a moment to read that, which is fine, I think. We still have an item in here for blocking mode purposes. This will not work for items more than 5, so we should probably swap that to a slightly larger chest on top here. But it looks like this does continue. Provided the mana pool doesn't run out, we're good then. So then the other thing is we need to make sure the mana pool's not on, or this mana pool's not too low to do anything, because otherwise we might have items despawn, which would be bad. Yeah, it seems on the 3rd craft it does this, where it has like 2 here, 2 here, and the living rock in there. But that's fine, because I don't think there's any recipes that take only 3 items, or even if there, or rather only 2 items. Even if there was, it would still be fine. Yeah, there's no 1 item Runic Altar recipe, which would be, I think, the only circumstance in which something like this would break. So let's trade this out for a slightly larger chest, and by this I mean what this is connected to. And this should still be fine. Yeah, it just has a larger inventory to pull from now, which is okay, I think. The living rock is always last in all these recipes, which is also good, because that's the last thing we want to put on the altar. Well, it doesn't matter if it goes on early for a purpose of breaking a recipe, but we definitely don't want it to be stopping other things from going in, you know? It looks like this is the last rune that's crafting right now, and they all went through fine, nothing needed intervention. I just kind of watched it for all 10, and we're good. Alright, so I think I can classify that as autocraftable runes. We will almost certainly have to change this in the future, once we need like a lot of runes. But for right now, this is fine, I think. We might also end up making several more of these types of setups, just because we'll probably want much more rune production capacity. And again, we may also passive that in the future, which would require a few more runic setups of different natures. So lots of keep an eye on that one, I think. But it doesn't look too bad. It's a little clunky, but like, you know, it's not gross or nothing. I don't feel a need to like put any shell around it. I think it's fine. Same thing with this one. This one's just fine. It's a little bit of redstone, but like, you know, a little bit of redstone's not too bad. It's not like wires hanging everywhere, you know? That means we can take off Hellfire Forge autocraftable, Rune autocraftable. I guess I did those backwards. I think we did a sufficient job decorating it all. We'll probably just leave Appalachia for next time then, which means we'll call it here for today. We did pretty good today. We automated a lot of things. We got our mana, we got our runes, we got our Hellfire Forges, we got our Petal Apothecary, we got living stuff done. It's a lot of important infrastructure we'll need for the upcoming areas. Next time, I'm certain we'll be going to Appalachia, and I guess we'll be continuing with blood magic if the quest book is anything to go by. Shameless promo time. If you liked the video, make sure to like it. If you'd want to see more like this, subscribe to the channel. And for a really shameless promo, I wrote a novella. You should read it. I'll put a link in the description if you want to. Anyway, that's all for now. Bye bye.